So I rendered the same scene we just did with the same lights a little closer so you could see, and I don't know if you can quite make it out in the video, but it's very speckled here. If I go even a little larger. Trying to see if I can really force that, make that obvious there. See how these dots are coming in? It almost looks like pixelated. Now there's a couple ways you can adjust that. That's a function, or at least an artifact that occurs with Arnold. You can go into the render settings for Arnold and improve that by changing this camera AA value, and you can pump that up, let's say to 7, and that will get rid of that stipple. The problem is when you do that, it's going to increase quite a bit your rendering time. So an alternate way of getting rid of those dots without making your rendering time as without lengthening your rendering time is to go into the light itself. So in this case I've got the key light selected, and under the Arnold settings here I'm going to change the angle. Now the angle I'm going to put up to 7. That should also get rid of any hard crisp edges. I'm not sure if we saw any. Yeah, see how how crisp that edge right there? So changing that angle should help make that softer, and then increasing the samples will also get rid of those dots. I'm going to do the same thing for the fill light. And even for the skylight. Now the sky dome light doesn't have the angle, but it does have samples. So I'm going to up its samples. Sky dome light isn't essentially casting shadows with hard edges at all, so it's kind of like we were talking about, almost a uniform flat light. So now I could render this whole thing again, but what I like to do is just test to see if what I did made any difference. So what I'm going to do is go under the options here, and I'm going to say there's a little option here already selected. It says auto render region. What that means is if I draw a box, when I release it, it will render in that area. So I don't have to wait for the entire thing to render. And what hopefully you can make out, I can see it, and I'm not sure if you'll see it on the tape, but now I don't have those dots. And let's see if we softened at all that crisp shadow. Yeah, you see how much softer that edge is then. So that's a nice way to get a more natural lighting. You're really always keep in mind we're trying to teach something. We're trying to really exaggerate or at least emphasize form, but we don't want to lose detail so that people can't see information. You know, if there's deep dark shadows, or if the shadow edge is so crisp and dark that it can sometimes distract people or even obliterate information. So we want to avoid that, and using these settings with this 3 light setup can give you a pretty soft yet volumetric or volume emphasizing light, and that's what we really want for the project.